We are very thrilled with the story of Lazarus, Mary, and Martha in the book of John in chapter 11, because we are witnessing a number of the gifts of the Spirit exercised by Jesus Christ. And we're primarily trying to understand the word of knowledge and the word of wisdom, though I'm going to touch momentarily on a couple of the other gifts, the gift of faith and the gift of performing of miracles. But last seminar we were going into the subject of Martha coming to Jesus and saying, Lord, if you hadn't been here, or pardon me, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. We discovered that at this point, Martha hadn't really come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ yet. Jesus had been in her home with Mary and with Lazarus, but apparently Martha still hadn't come to a knowledge of him at this point. It's only right now, as Martha comes to him and begins to make this statement, Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died, that Jesus now says to her that I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Do you believe this, Martha? And of course Martha said, Yes, Lord. I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God, which should come into the world. And it's right at that point that Martha then believes on Christ unto salvation. She is now what we term born again. Now we note something else takes place. Martha goes and she calls Mary secretly, her sister, and she says, the master is come and calls for you. And as soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came to Jesus. Now Jesus was not yet come into town, but was in that place where Martha met him. And the Jews then, which were with her in the house, and had comforted her when they saw Mary, that she rose up hastily and went out, followed her, saying, she goes to the grave to weep there. Then when Mary was come where Jesus was, she saw him, and she fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Do you know something? Are you noticing something significant in that both Martha and Mary said the exact same words to Jesus? But I noticed something else, that Jesus does not treat Mary's the same way as he did Martha's. People can come to you and say the same thing to you, and because you are knowing and in the circumstances, and plus using the gift of the word of knowledge and the word of wisdom, you never treat the same thing twice. Because people are unique, they're different. Martha hadn't come to a knowledge of Christ yet when she said the remark to Jesus. Mary had. And we note something else altogether took place. When Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping, which came with her, he groaned in his spirit and was troubled. And then he said, Where have you laid him? And they said unto him, Lord, come and see. Then Jesus wept. Again, we note the humanity of Jesus here. When he sat on the well, at Jacob's well, right, with the woman of Samaria, he was thirsty, tired, weary. And also now we note that he weeps. Very, very human. Then said the Jews, Behold, how he loved him. I'm not going to go into a lot of theologies as to why Jesus wept. That's not what I'm teaching on. But we're primarily on the gifts of the Spirit. And some of them said, Could not this man which opened the eyes of the blind have caused that even this man should not have died? Jesus therefore, again groaning in himself, comes to the grave, and it was a cave, and a stone lay upon it. Now for those of you who remember the study seminar on the gift of tongues, we go into this portion where Jesus groaned in the Spirit and explained briefly what we thought that this was. But since we have already covered that ground, I'm not going to go back and study it again. Then Jesus said, Take ye away the stone. And Martha, the sister of him that was dead, said unto him, Lord, by this time he's stinking, for he has been dead for 4 days. Now, in that hot country as well, it's not quite like it was here, or is here, that if it were in the wintertime, of course, you wouldn't find the body decaying as quickly. But there, where it was terribly hot, naturally the body would begin to decay very suddenly. Then said Jesus unto her, oh, I like this. Did not I say unto you that if you would believe, you would see the glory of God? Then he took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you heard me, and I knew that you hear me always, but because of the people which stand by, I said it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. Now, do you remember my telling you that the whole reason and the purpose behind all of the gifts of the Spirit is that people will believe on Jesus Christ? Isn't that the whole reason for it? When we reveal a word of knowledge and we declare to someone a need of their body, the purpose behind it is that that person will have their faith built up in the Most High God and then receive healing for their body. Or, as in the case of Martha, that she would believe that Jesus was the Christ. She was going to see the glory of God by the raising of her brother, also Lazarus, from the dead. And I love the way that Jesus just stood there and he prayed this prayer, and he said that they may believe that thou hast sent me. He wasn't going to try to prove it in his own strength, but he was going to minister the power gifts of the Spirit of God so that others would believe. And that's why we're going to do it. We're going to forget ourselves. We're going to not keep our eyes on ourselves or what we're capable of doing, but rather we're going to minister so that others will say, oh, that is truly a work of God, and God will receive the glory and the praise. And when he had thus spoken, he cried with a loud voice and said, Lazarus, come forth. Note, he says 3 little words, Lazarus, come forth. Do you know that if he hadn't have said, Lazarus, come forth, that the whole cotton-picking graveyard would have come forth? That's right. That's right. There's power in the spoken word. And when we go into the study of the gift of faith, we're going to see much more about this. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound about with a napkin. And Jesus said unto them, Loose him and let him go. Then many of the Jews which came to Mary and had seen the things which Jesus did believed on him. A lot of people want the spectacular, you know. I note today in the renewal that there are many who are looking for, let's say, a lot of great healings and a lot of spectacular things. And I believe that, of course, God is moving. We are going to see many, many more miracles of healing. But it isn't just looking for the healings for the sake of the healings. It isn't looking for the dramatic for the sake of the dramatic. The only time things like this are exercised in the book is for the purpose that people will believe on Christ. And that's the whole aim and the motive behind any ministry in the gifts of the Spirit. I must tell you a story, in which case I've got to take you back to a couple of verses here that we read in our last seminar. And this is in chapter 11 of John, where it says here that Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, and verse 6, and when he had heard therefore that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. We mentioned to you that it would seem a very, kind of a rude thing for Jesus to ignore the 2 sisters coming to him and telling him that Lazarus was sick. And that it would seem to be a thing that Jesus was just really not with it. That he didn't really care for Lazarus as much as it would have appeared. And I also mentioned to you that sometimes for the sake of friendship, some things will happen that you will have to realize that you're moving now in a different area for the glory of God and not unto men. And friends will still be your friends, but temporarily it might seem a little bit strange. The gift of the word of wisdom isn't always the thing that we might say is the thing to do according to our natural understanding. It might be altogether contrary to what we think should happen. This was when I was in Trinidad. We had just to begin our teaching seminars on the gifts of the Spirit. God was moving in a wonderful way. And of course, whenever his power and his glory, he desires to manifest this, we never know what is going to happen. We just sort of take one day at a time. I was sitting in the auditorium. The auditorium was holding now at this point about 800 people. The seating arrangement was like this, in that the seats were kind of like this along here, and then they would come back to the back this way, and then they were also sitting along here, so that you had rows of seats this way, a number of rows back this way, and also some more rows right in here. And of course they came also in through here too. The area for speaking was right here. There's about 3 people sitting here, and then I'm sitting right here waiting to now come up to my seating place to where I'm supposed to be talking. And while I'm sitting here, I noticed in this direction a woman who is sitting in a few seats here, looking very, very ill. I glanced at her, and I thought, my, that woman looks terribly sick. Goodness, I wonder what's wrong with her. Now, I'm not the type of a person that ignores some people who are suffering. If I looked at this and see that they're not looking well or they're suffering in some way, I'll get up and go over to them. You know, I'll say, hey, look, you know, don't you feel very well? Can I do anything for you? Can I get you a glass of water? Can I help you? What can I do for you? But I sat there like a bump on a log, you know? Here I am coming to minister to people and caring for people, and I'm sitting there, and I can't figure out why I don't have any emotion to this. And I'm looking at her, and I'm saying, the poor dear, you know, she looks sick. Terrible. Very unfeeling. It's a strange sensation. Well, I glanced at her a couple of times and was very much aware that she certainly did not look very well. And then finally, the young man who is now leading the song service motioned for me then to come up and take the microphone, because I'm now going to get ready to teach in the seminar. I got up to the microphone, and while I'm standing there, and I couldn't have said more than just 2 or 3 sentences at the outside, that's all. When all of a sudden, as I look down at this woman, the thoughts that come into my mind is this: the woman is dead. She's dead. I still wasn't moved. That is, I didn't feel any emotion. Now, you don't just have somebody dying in your meeting, you know, every day. She's dead. She's saying she's dead. Suddenly, a woman who is sitting in the row right behind her jumps up and she says, oh, please, Mary, somebody please help this woman. She's in terrible condition. And I thought, she's more than just in a terrible condition. She's dead. Now, her daughter is sitting right beside her in the seat. We have with us the woman who actually, by faith, asked me to go out to the West Indies. It was on her faith that I went, and she said, Lord, you know, my people need teaching, and I'm just wondering, you know, if Mary, would you come out and teach out here? She was a registered nurse. She is sitting right over here at the end. Now, all of these people here, Babsy, the woman I was working with, several other people along in here, all the people in the front seats and all along through here could see now this woman. The people sitting behind couldn't see her face, but everybody in here. So the story I'm telling you is not something that just my eyes are seeing, and it's just me that's telling you this. This is a known fact throughout all of the people that are here. And so this woman then, jumping up saying, oh, please, please, please come and help. By this point, this woman now, who is the registered nurse, gets up. She comes over to where the woman is dead. She takes her pulse in her hand, and she tries to find a pulse. In the meantime, I very, very slowly say this to the young man who was leading the song service. I said, look, would you come back up and take the microphone here and lead a few more choruses, and I'm just going to go down here for a moment, and I'll be right back up. Now, I did it very slowly, very nonchalantly. I mean, you have somebody dying in your meeting, and you just sort of very relaxed say, oh, well, I wonder if you would just help us just for a moment. So I walked very, very slowly. I said very, very slowly. I did not rush over to where this woman was. By the time I got there, the lady who was now the registered nurse was taking her pulse, and she says, the woman is dead. I said, yes, I know. The daughter of the woman who is sitting beside her now has her head on her mother's chest, and she's crying. Oh, mother, mother, mother's gone. Now, you see, her daughter knew she was dead, too. You know the cry of death. I know when people cry, when they've hurt themselves, they cry because they're lonely, or they cry for a lot of reasons. But when someone dies, there is a special cry, a cry of death. No different than Mary and Martha weeping, okay? Now, at this point, I walked over to the woman right in front of her. I laid my hand on the woman's head, and I put my other hand on the woman's chest. I spoke very briefly in the Spirit, that is, in tongues. Very few words. I don't even know what they were. I could never repeat them, but I spoke them loudly. And then the second thing I did was I said this: in the name of Jesus, I command the heart to beat again and the spirit to return to the body. And that is all I said. I turned around as slowly as I went down, started to walk up to the platform. And in so doing, I am aware of the thoughts of some of the people. And I'm going to confirm this to you later. And they were thinking this: why is she leaving so soon? Why doesn't she do something more? Those thoughts did not disturb me at all. I didn't stop and go back and try and do something else. I kept right on walking up to the platform, started in to speak as though nothing had happened. Now the woman, you see, when I turned around, as I started to come up to the platform, the woman's eyelids are starting to flutter. Now what happened at this point? The woman over here who came, the registered nurse who came to take her pulse, just said to her, look, would you like to come back to the back and we'll let you sit down back here for a moment until you feel sort of revived, okay? They picked her up. Well, they didn't carry her. She walked back on her own steam, back to the back, and I never even gave the woman another thought. Later on, during the course of the meeting, in which case after the teaching seminar was over, they had Mass. Guess who was in the line taking Mass with everybody else? The former dead woman. Now what I'm telling you is factual, because there's far too many people to witness what took place and too many people to verify the fact that the woman was dead. Because the following day, after, Babsy received a number of telephone calls stating that woman was dead, wasn't she? She was dead, wasn't she? Yes, she was. And many people verified this. Now what happened? I thought, Lord, you give some beautiful material for teaching sometimes. It isn't just a story for the sake of a story. You've got something to teach us here, Lord. What is it? And I had to wait on the Lord to find out what it was He wanted to teach us. Well, we were continuing on in the seminar then. Something happened. I came to this story in the teaching. And I thought, man, Lord, you'd never given me a story like this one before to teach on this one. But, boy, you brought a live one right up to date. And I came into the portion where it says, and he heard therefore that he was sick, that is Lazarus, and he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was, and went to say that Jesus would appear to have had no feeling whatsoever. And then I was in the meeting teaching them, and I said to these people, now listen, when I went down and ministered to this woman and turned around and came back again, some of you were thinking this: why is she leaving so soon? Why doesn't she stay and do something more? Come on, which ones of you were thinking this? And hands went up to their mouth all over the place as though, I didn't say that out loud. I said, come on now, raise your hands, be honest with me. And many, many hands went up. So it verified the revelation. I said, now listen, I want to ask you one question. What do you think I should have done? What did you want me to do further than what I did? You were thinking, why doesn't she do something more? What should I do? Come on now, you tell me, what do you think I should do more to help this situation? I said, I bet you I know. You were thinking that I should lay hands on this person and go into some kind of an exercise of great emotionalism. Oh, Lord, I just pray right now that you will do something here. Oh, Lord, you just can't let this woman die in our meeting. Oh, God, do something now for your name's sake. Oh, Lord, do something. And go on. Isn't that what you expected? Well, yeah, I guess so. I said, come on, can you think of anything else that you would have wanted me to do? Well, no. I said, you just don't think that anything can possibly happen just by the spoken word, obviously. We got to get into some kind of a frenzy to see that something happens. Is this correct? Would you like to return next time and join us? And we'll be glad to share with you the rest of the story on the raising of Lazarus from the dead.